Hey, I'm sorry. I didn't want to rename the dock. It's the same thing. No impact to line. Bad. All right. You get it?
No, it's my daughter's acting up. Yeah, I got it. Just looked it up.
Okay. So we know when you're ready.
Yeah. It's confusing forever to close. Of course, it's alright, I'm ready.
All right. You get that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Subpoint 1 is the Hornet School of the Americans, Still Sporting Death Squads, Waddy 15. School of the Americans responsible for training of 64,000 South American soldiers, many willing to kill notorious searchers and murders in death squads. So it was the big space with DC position Latin America, so relocated before Pin Georgia's rename 1 2 2001, allowing for termination of the previous program through disassociation reality. However, 1 retains Stowe Foundation, U.S. Department of Defense has shielded the Institute from criticism without crime in regards to schools' historical link to human rights violations since 2001. So the crimes with the civil graduates have come to light of 25 graduates from 2001 to 2003. 12 have been charged with serious crime. Command units whose members were reportedly committed multiple extrajudicial killings. The disassociation from the school's history and its original name, the so is merely premise for distancing the institution from the atrocities committed by students and graduates. History, however, tells a different story. Well, once it continues to emphasize what describes commitment to human rights, beside the mere 8 hours of research on the subject, research such as the report of Columbia's extrajudicial killings reveals the reality goes beyond the cosmetic reforms employed by the institution. Subpoint 2 is inherency. Congress has dragged their feet on the closure, and the FBI has actively investigated the anti-Soviet movement. McCoskey in 2015, the American Civil Liberties Union released documents showing the federal investigation initiated counterterrorism investigation of Soviet Watch, the human rights organization that coordinates anti-Soviet activities. It had also increased its surveillance priority level of knowing the rapid growth of the movement. It had also increased its more frustrating than the movement is recalculated the Congress continuing willingness to congressional representatives cut the school's funding to push activists to rethink their strategy. Although they have not abandoned legislative efforts to close school, the movement has not taken their message directly to the new generation of Latin American heads of state and requesting these officials no longer send soldiers to train the SO/WINSEC. Thus the plan. The United States federal government, through an act of Congress, should permanently suspend operation of WINSEC and its training network and prohibit the reestablishment of any school in its place. Implementation and enforcement through the Secretary of the Army. Subpoint 3, solvency suspension. WINSEC closes down, prevents future military education efforts from Government 13. Suspend the authority for the Western Hemisphere Institute for Security Cooperation, Sister Institution, United States Army School of the Americas. The Secretary of the Army shall suspend operation of the Western Hemisphere Institute for Security Cooperation. The authority of the Secretary of Defense to operate an education training facility under Section 4166 of the Title of the United States Code is suspended. Limitation on the establishment of new education training facility. No training or education facility may be established in the Department of Defense or Latin American military personnel successor to the United States Army School of the Americas, the Western Hemisphere Institute for Security Cooperation. Subpoint 4 is that Southern Command's role includes training of regional military leaders at WINSEC 1016 to enhance professional development of the region's military leaders and senior U.S. Southern Command conducts facilitates international military education and training, military benefits, exchanges, security seminars. These programs upload accountable, transparent, and ensure the sustainability of U.S. security cooperation investments at defense institutes like WINSEC. Subpoint 5 is WINSEC rotates trainings between the school and Fort Benning and training facilities physically located in Latin America. JP Stottle 14. Student troops on training missions have been rotating down to Fort Benning and training forces inside Honduras. Although students will come to Fort Benning to do model training relies on a heavy dose of in-country training of local military and security forces. This full rebuild of School of the Americas model deploys troops globally on training missions. Advantage 1 is cap sucks. Subpoint 1 is training regional forces at WINSEC is to conform to the neoliberal U.S. order is key to expanding global capitalism, and the plan stops this. Koski and Suster 15. Training regional security forces at Center /WINSEC constitutes a key part of empire building. The United States developed a global capitalist empire by restructuring politically independent states to conform to social, economic, political interest, and powerful military is a critical to this process. The major problem in the American states is how to fashion all states of the world so that they become at least minimally adequate for the administration of global order. Crafting effective states administration via global capitalism requires dense networks of political, economic, cultural, and especially military relationships. Building and sustaining these networks of complex methods development even around the world outside the major capital states of Western Europe. Social, cultural, and political networks are often fragile. Within the United States must rely on a greater degree of militaries and hard to suppress social unrest. Is often created by its own policy. Subpoint 2 is that although the school claims to reform the curriculum, the fact the school has remained open serves as a symbol of the U.S. neoliberal empire building. Koopman in no way. The school continues to serve as a signal because it retaught the militaries are no likely to put the skills to horrific use these days, most of the students of Colombian Army, which has an appalling record of killing the school, continues to train individuals of known human rights violations, have been no accountability in the U.S. for the atrocities those, and wrote on top of this manual, and disciplinary actions have been no knowledge by the Army of wrongdoing, the U.S. Army holding accountable since signals to other militaries that violations of human rights are acceptable. Subpoint 3, capitalism renders whole population standing reserves, making widespread extermination inevitable, culminating in the destruction of the planet. International perspective 2K, mass death and genocide become an integral part of capitalism, ethnic cleansing, mass death, nuclear war, example of the futures which await the human species. All beings are treated as standing reserve. The reduction of humans to raw materials, the anti-chamber in the war will become turned into ashes. The survival of capitalism will entail more recourse to mass murder. And subpoint 4 is only solutions which change our approach to economics can solve Magnoff and Foster and Tin. The ecological crisis cannot be solved in the logical present system. The system world capitalism is clearly unsustainable. It must begin by opposing logical capital, endeavoring here and now to create the injustices of the system, a new social metabolism rooted in the egalitarianism of these initiatives can become powerful enough to constitute the basis of a revolutionary new movement in society. There is no alternative to the earth as we know, and humanity itself to survive. Subpoint 5, we have an a priori ethical obligation to reject capitalism. Zizek and Daly 4. It is imperative that we recognize our ethical and political responsibility to confront the constitutive violence of today's global capitalism, see naturalization and automation of the millions who are subjugated by it throughout the world. We should not lose sight of systemic power capital shaping the lives and destinies of human in the very shape of the possible in order to create a universal global system. The force of capitalism seeks to conceal the political discursive violence, the construction of the kind of gentrification of the system, the gentrification of global capitalism, one whose universalism fundamentally reproduces and depends upon the disavowed violence that excludes vast sectors of the world population. The human cost in terms of inherent global poverty and greater life chances can not be calculated with the existence of great economic rationale, and is magnified through capitalism's profound capacity, injustice, own excess, and negativity. The fact that our forms of social existence are found on exclusion on a global scale. Subpoint 6, but before they question the method of working in the state to reform it, research proves compared to Vetted Grossberg 92, the left has to work against within bureaucratic systems, governments, the most effective struggle was accomplished by mobilizing popular pressure on governmental institutions, the media and structure by which powers actively realizing often by directing opposition against specific institutions that power can be challenged. Subpoint 7 is the state is the most influential actor in international politics. Individuals identify with the state and won't accept other actors carry on. In 2000, the state must continue to serve as an indispensable actor because the largest entity which people identify themselves with continues to be the state. And far from seen in the future will be no change to this regard. Even in the case of private organizations, the state is the actor must create the new rules they advocate in areas such as human rights, humanitarian issues, and the environment. And subpoint 8, failure to engage with the state creates vacuums that will be filled by violent leads. Cook in 92, deconstruct without material rootedness creates a political void in which social real power deconstructs steps and steps from the disempowered and dispossessed to those dying, dehumanized, and brutalized by violent power. Hardly seems a matter of illegitimate theoretical privileging when vision and political struggle do not accompany critique. The void will be filled by the powerful. Open for cross-sex.
Okay, can you explain to me what your plan specifically does again?
Sure. So what we do is we close WinSec, we close all the schools within its training network, and we take away the authority to ever establish another school in its place.
Okay, and where exactly are all schools located?
Sure. So so there's a couple arguments. The first will be is that specifically WinSec, Tid mentions the William J. Perry School and the Defense Reform Institution. J.P. Stottle, the Stottle 14 evidence, specifically mentions institutions like Honduras. And specifically, I believe there are a number of, I have evidence if you want to go down this route of a number of different institutions that are part of this training.
Now, are these schools funded by them, or are they ran by them, or are they WinSec, or what are they?
So they're all part of the sort of this WinSec training network. I think my Stottle evidence does a really great job of explaining how it's no longer just this single fundamental institution, but rather we moved into more of a distributed form of training for the military. But all of this is still functioning under the banner of the WinSec program and being taught by its curriculum.
So the school's not important. The training is important.
No, the school, actually my Koopman 08 evidence establishes that the school in particular is uniquely important because it is a unique symbol of the worst excesses of U.S. neoliberal empire building, and particularly that it sends a signal to other aspects of the military, but also to the military, to the military itself, that these abuses and this American exceptionalism, what?
Neoliberalism, what is that?
Neoliberalism, it's sort of this merger of the notion of capitalism through imperialism. It's when a state fundamentally functions as an economic actor in that it pursues empire building, it pursues foreign policy only under the guise of its own economic growth and economic gain for resources.
And in your last card, the failure to engage the states creates a vacuum that will be filled by violent elites. Does it specifically say any country that's going to come, or it just says anybody?
So this argument is about, this argument is framing and defending my methodology of work. Are you timing this? Because I actually didn't start my timer, sorry.
Oh, no, I wasn't timing. We can finish later.
Alright, I'll answer here. My argument here is not like a specific country filling in. My analysis is just that like we can recognize that the state has problems, but still try to fix the state rather than feeling that the only way to the only solution to these major problems like capitalism and neoliberalism is to basically say screw the state. Right, it's defending my methodology of affirming, of working a policy through the state as a method of reformism.
I'll take showtime.
Alright, starting with
Yeah. Stop my time now at 1:45.
Alright,
I'll email this to you.
cool, thank you.
It's not opening. Is there any way that I can send it to you, give it to you through USB?
Yeah, you have a flash drive?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
You should just email it to me after he uses it to you.
Okay. I expect an extra speaker point for the extra work.
It's gonna be the last one under Wednesday. I'll give you an extra speaker point for the work, but I'll knock one off for the SATs.
The 1 sec docket,
What's up?
is it one?
Yeah, just that one.
Just 1 sec, okay. Cool. Post this back and that. So what's the order?
So I'm gonna go,
I just sent it.
off case and then on case.
How many off?
One off.
Okay.
Starting now. So WINSEC is all of Southcom. Interpretation: Latin America refers to the continuous landmass from northern Mexico to southern Chile, Bosco, and Jicauzi. 12. What exactly is the extent of Latin America? Most geographic textbooks of Latin America define the region as the southernmost tips of Argentina and Chile de Fuego to Mexico in the northern, thus including both South and Central America. Part 2. Southcom is a joint command of the U.S. Armed Forces with subordinate Joint Task Force, Global Security 2012. Southcom is a joint command comprised of Navy, Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marine elements. There is one subordinate Joint Task Force, JT Fleet F, and one joint interagency task force with Southcom. 2 is violations. WINSEC is outside Latin America and is not under Southcom WINSEC website. 16, the Department of Defense is responsible for the institution and its activities. The Secretary of Defense has designated the Secretary of the Army as his executive agent to supervise and manage Combined Arms Center at Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, exercise supervisory command and control of the institution. WINSEC supports both Southcom and Northcom in their security cooperation missions. 3 is standards, limits. Their interpretation explodes the research burden of the negative. Southcom and Latin America are meant to limit each other's in the resolution. The topic area should be what comes into the intersection of Latin America countries not covered by Southcom. While Southcom has stations outside of Latin America. B is education. A more precise definition is key to the topic. Education, ignoring limits and allowing the broader, less precise interpretation causes the topic to lack focus, which hinders our ability to learn about the region. C is grounds, the link out of core generics, no way to generate offense. Our interpretation creates inequitable ground of the AF and the negative. D is extra T, extra topical. The AF is outside the resolution. WINSEC is outside of Latin America and not part of Southcom. They justify infinite additions and partnerships. Southcom, a part of ARN in Latin America, make it possible to prep against FXT. At best, they are effectively topical. They might reduce the role of Southcom in Latin America, but only as an effect, and not to mandate destroy predictability. Cause we can never, when the AF becomes topical. 4 is voters should vote for the neg for NFA LD rules and reasons articulated above. Next is capitalism is good for war. Capitalism, so global economic liberalism solves war between great powers. Griswold 02, free trade strengthens peace by raising the cost of war to governments and their citizens. As nations become integrated, they have more to lose should trade be disrupted. Since 1987, spending on armaments has dropped by more than 1/3. Libya, Sudan, Syria, Iraq, Iran, Afghanistan, and North Korea are among the least globalized countries. During the 1930s, the industrialized nations waged war to protect domestic industries, choking off global trade and prolonging global economic depressions. Those times contributed to World War II. Next card is neoliberalism solves internal state violence. TERS 03. Numerous studies compared neoliberalism and status policies. A combination of historical events, modern theorists, and statistical findings indicated that a reduced role for the state in regulating economic actions is associated with a decrease in internal conflicts. Countries where the government dominates the commercial realm experience an increase in the level of domestic violence. Scholars have traced the history of revolutions to explain the relationship between statism and internal upheavals. Next is capitalism is good for inequality. Neoliberalism solves global inequality. Oboff 03. Many argue that the rich and the poor are drifting farther apart and the violence between classes increasing. Is capitalist responsibility responsible? No, such analysts overlook more obvious sources of backlash, elite behavior, corruption, and Latin nationalist tensions. There is no correlation between globalization and increasing inequality with countries. Since the end of the Cold War, conflict has been concentrated in countries with little education and economic declines Interstate conflict is systematically related to low national income and a lack of economic opportunities, but not inequality. Next is capitalism is good for democracy. Neoliberalism helps spread democracy, which helps decrease war. Griswold 07. War declining worldwide. Studies say conflict around the world has been declining in the past half centuries. Growing commercial ties between nations have had a dampening effect on armed conflict and war. Free trade and globalization have promoted peace in three main ways. Democracies tend not to pick fights with each other thanks to, in part, with globalization among two-thirds of the world countries. Today are democracies. More countries turn to democracies that will be fewer provocations by war, by non-democratic democracies. Next, we're going to go on to the hegemony disadvantage. Well, that's off case. Sorry, I forgot to say this is off case. But hegemony disadvantage. The United States is committed to Latin America now. Recent increases prove. Bear 15. U.S. plans are mainly to maintain U.S. hegemony and its control over our natural resources. Both Bush and Obama have continued with the basic premises that a military response is necessary when combating drug trafficking. The United States has increased its military presence in Latin America. The last few years, the United States has been ramping up its military operations throughout Latin America. The increasing presence of United States military in Peru is also controversial and seems to conform to coincidence of goals U.S. and Latin American administrations. The United States intends to retake the initiative in Southern America and implement a more visible military presence in the Andes and Western Pacific. Two is Latin America is a testing ground. Reducing Southcom legitimizes external actors. Expansions threatens hegemony. Quintilla and Florence 15. The United States certainly remains engaged Latin America, but so too do competitors of the United States, rivals who seek to gain access to these regions, markets and resources, cultivating relationships that support competing security agendas. The United States should remain mindful of these regions and the role that they play in geostrategic affairs. Security cooperations between the United States and regional partners play a critical role. Southcom handles U.S. military engagement with. Okay.
Sure. All right, on your T, specifically, where do you read any evidence that, like, okay, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to think of how to phrase this better. So, like, where do you indicate that I have to specifically be within Latin America? Like, when do you give me an interpretation of what in Latin America means?
It's the first part, the interpretation.
Sure, you give me what Latin America means, but where do you specifically indicate, like, the function of the limiting function of the resolution keeping within that area?
Maybe in terms of our education, a more precise definition is key to a topic education, I would think.
Okay, interesting. Let's talk about, all right, so you read this capitalism is good for war. Right? So explain to me, like, specifically what your warrant on here is. Is this like an economic interdependence argument, or what?
The argument here is that free trade, which is what goes hand in hand with liberalism and you were saying neoliberalism, things of that nature, they go hand in hand, and that it helps like ease tensions between countries.
Okay, let's talk about capitalism. Has there ever been an instance of like a form of capitalism without poverty and inequality?
I mean, you could say that about almost anything. There's been forms of poverty and inequality in authoritarian governments and social governments and communism and.
I know, but I'm asking specifically within like where do you where do you read do you read any warrants that are comparative between capitalism and the fundamental and like the alternatives to it that say that capitalism creates a net less inequality?
I do not have any cards.
Okay. Let's talk about the hedge disad.
Okay.
Where on your link level does it specifically talk about anything that talks about training or WinSec in particular?
Nothing here talks about that WinSec specifically. It's just meant to explain that our hegemony is strong in Latin America. I was tying it to your 8th card, the question I asked that the void will be taken over. You said that if we leave by and that it's important for us to be there and things of that nature, and it is, and we are there, and that WinSec being taken away.
Okay, that's fine. I'm just gonna go take a quick second for it. Stop and prep 249. The order is going to be, we'll go T case to said, so same order. And I'll just do this now. Alright. Let me know when you both got it, and when you're ready to get started.
I got it. Just let me open it up.
I'm set.
What?
I'm set.
Okay, and you're good?
It's opening now. Stamp computer. Did you, oh wait,
T's on top, then case and then just add.
what the heck?
What?
Because when I opened it, it opened up mine.
Oh, you probably got, cause I just hit reply all, so look for the
Oh.
other email that has my doc.
Oh, maybe this one. Or it's,
Exactly, just hit reply all, so you should be on the chain.
1AR?
Yeah, 1AR, around 61AR.
Yeah, he also gave it the wrong speech name, so we're all just confused.
This is the 1AR.
Isn't this the,
No, not in LD.
2AC.
In LD, there's not a 2AC,
then what's the last one called?
2AR.
It's stupid.
I didn't say I disagreed.
There's not a 2A, how can there be a 2A? Okay, whatever. Proceed.
LD. You got it?
Yeah.
Alright, let's do this. First on top county is going to be turn establishing a binary distinction between Latin America and other regions, reinscribes the operational substance and underlying the erasure of Latin American international relations and justifies the genocide and racism, colonialism, their form of education, colonialism, should be rejected. If I win, then I create a better education, I win the position, I win the debate. Taylor 10. Americans understood as the binary divided by the Rio Grande, split, drew on European understanding of themselves being divided between the Latin Catholic, southern, poorer countries and the Teutonic, Protestant, northern, richer countries. This basic distinction was transposed on the American side of the binary, which Canada is lumped in with the USA and the Caribbean is excess sense of binding Americans been establishing during the world of Latin America's act as another and it plays a pivotal role in the making of the U.S. identity through imperialism. This idea is derived from the assumed superiority of the conquering class, which taught Native Americans to be incapable of developing the full potential of the Americas, which legitimize their appropriation of the territory. The notion is still an operational assumption, one of the foundations of manifest destiny. Second is going to be the I'm Heat from Watson 10. WinSec is direct responsibility of Southern Command to accomplish educating personnel from armed services throughout the region. Second is the counter interpretation of Southern Command's role includes education, DoD 16. So the the command works with allies in the region, deliver advice, education, assistance to the priorities of countering transnational organized crime, counterterrorism, drug interdiction, building party capacity, response, retaining operations. 3 is I meet the plan reduces Southern Command education initiatives through Wednesday classified the 2016 card and how the Admiral Southern Command specifically says they do that for the reasons prefer. It is going to be the intent to define. My interpretation comes from a PhD dissertation for this definition comes from a source intending to define from a contextualized perspective. My interpretation is key to better education is based on official statements from the resolutional actor. B is reasonability decision rule. The affirmative is making a reasonable interpretation of the topic, making a reasonable attempt to limit the role of South Common Latin America. You don't go to stand on the same predictability arguments. I'm running some of the restrictions U.S. training in Latin American militaries. Additionally, predictability changes round and round depending on what they want to limit on. But reasonability stays stable. Always prefer reasonability. The topic is super unwieldy. 5 some card solvency is probably should be considered topical. B is going to be the extra topicality is going to take some more holistic approach rather than artificially limiting ourselves to one agency which may not ever actually be able to affect the status quo. We take a more holistic approach, being able to engage in the full spectrum of the issues necessary to solve issues like capitalism. This is going to be a net turn to the, this is going to be a straight turn to the education. Extra T is going to be a better internal link to education, but additionally, the next argument is going to be the effects topicality is inevitable. They don't give you a right line for how many effects are bad or why the inherent ones inherent to fiat are okay. Specifically, I would articulate that fiat in and of itself construes a number of different effects. I have to introduce a bill and have it go pass through both parts of Congress, and I have to have the president signing. They don't give you a right line for how many effects I get before I'm uniquely bad. Probably means that effects topicality is inevitable. There's going to be no specific abuse on that. But next is going to be on education. It is going to be turning topicality over limits affirmative creativity, hurts portable skills, ability to think about being come up with alternative solutions, uphill problem solving skills. Creativity is one of the skills key to critical thinking, which means the T hurts our epistemological development. Second is going to be turning the education they prescribe has been subverted by capitalism, focusing on the policy of firmness, key to create a better form of education. That critically questions capitalism. If I win, I create better education. I win the position. I win the debate. Trainer. 10. 12. In consumer capitalist society, education is little to do with education. Currently, universities train workers that develop skills and disposition required to staff the industrial machine with obedient workers who accept hierarchy. Get the card here. Next is going to be turn. Capitalism is an inherently unfair system. The affirmative is key to deconstructing the system. Turns their fairness impacts the T. Precludes discussion of the unfairness of the system. Occupy Wall Street. 12. The entire system of capitalism is unfair because it's based on theft and exploitation. Undemocratic capitalism based on theft is entirely based on the privatization of planet and its resources. Capitalism enables the 3% who have bargaining power to exploit the 97% who don't. Get the card there. And next is NFL dealers. Don't tell you how to punch me from on top. You don't let them get away with lazy arguments like the rules. On case, first, extend the G today with 4 evidence. They fundamentally drop the ethical obligation to reject capitalism. Means you as a judge have the ethical obligation to use the ballot as a tool to be able to reject capitalism. The rule about is to vote for the team that best rejects the notion of capitalism. They didn't do this. Means you have to they drop this argument. Means you have to look at through this specific rule of the ballot. But additionally, they drop by solvency mechanisms, particularly solving for capitalism, of how we stop the empire building through the training in schools like WINSEC. Means that as soon as I win the capitalism is bad, that's going to be an easy ballot for the AFLON. Go to their first argument on the war. 1, extend my G-Check and daily card. Capitalism is built upon violence of the lower classes of social hierarchies. The violence builds in the Civil War. 2 is extend my Magdoff and Foster evidence that talks about capitalism's drive for resources. Capitalism forces countries to go to war to fuel economies. Look at the Iraq War. We went because we needed oil. Dick Cheney was on Halliburton's board, which has made trillions on the Middle Eastern oil since 2002. Capitalism is the strongest link to war. 3 is that the plan solved for stopping capitalism. We no longer feel the need to violently pursue resources through empire building. But 4 is that capitalism makes insecurity and war inevitable and squo gloom. And 9. When security is defined the power of making safe to insert the status quo with deepening capitalization, societies become more vulnerable to volatile flows, rendering them radically insecure. The globalization insecurities, people stratify, disrupting device from those suffering and those profiting from. Get the card here. Next on the poverty argument, on the inequality argument. 1 is exchange my G-Check and daily card that indicates the way violent inequality is the foundation of capitalism. Only focuses on somehow more than others. The key motivation of capitalism is to accumulate more than your neighbor. 2 is capitalism can't solve poverty, causing there no empirical instance of poverty. Capitalism, his evidence is not comparative. Means you're probably going to prefer my arguments. 3 is plan solved to reject capitalism to prevent access to new resources which cap uses to full consumption in order to fuel economy. 3 is going to be poverty just because of capitalism. Johnson, no date. Poverty is such a structural aspect of the system, consequent how the system is organized. The system we have is organized in ways which allow small elites to control most of the capital. Card there. On the democracy argument, 1 is extend the G-Check and daily evidence talks about the inherent inequality in capitalism. Democracy functions the idea that all votes and voters are equal in the capital system. The inherent inequality is the lack of something, someone winning, someone losing. 2 is second. Look at the way the giant Wall Street banks and corporations get to buy up government through lobbying. Look at the Halliburton accepting the safe water drinking act. It happened to pass when Vice President Cheney was sitting on the board. Cap is bad for democracy because it fosters the inequality laws. Rich people have more influence in our government. 3's plan stops us. We stop capitalism from continuing to grow through the empire building for resources. 4 is going to be no risk of deterrent. True democracy is impossible in the framework because money corrupts the system, so it always serves the interest of the elite. We'll keep 1. Capitalism transformed democracy, an illusion, the vision of labor should know, mean production loans done with the labor power means democracy impossible. On the dissad, he misunderstands the argument just because I defend reforming the state is good doesn't mean I defend U.S. imperialism is good. Hedge sucks, but it's motivated by capitalism. The after prior question, the dissad. Look at Iraq, the U.S. expanded our hedge to the Middle East oil to fuel capital consumption. Millions of innocents died, and ISIS is rising from the actions. Plan solves for squashing out capitalism, doing through the state extent the Cook 92 card without working through the state violent capital. So Donald Trump get to start World War III. Second is going to be turn U.S. hegemony to vehicle for Western capitalism. The AF solved Cornell 2000. People natural natural resource has been treated as external means to be colonized by capital and internal to be subject to its hegemonic control. The card there, in turn, hedge-based alliances draw the U.S. into multiple nuclear conflicts, critical Orlando sticks rather than being instruments of regional pacification. I guess when you have the card pacification, it's not going to really get anywhere.
I'll take my last minute and 45 seconds, starting now.
Are you reading any of that?
No, no.
Okay. What's the order?
Actually,
Oh.
I think I might have one new card. Yeah. Do you want me to send it to you?
Yeah.
Okay. No, I'm just not gonna read it.
Okay.
And I'm just gonna go off everything else.
Wait, so what's the order?
Oh, it's gonna be the same way you win, top calorie on case, then it's just that, yeah.
Okay.
Starting, starting now. Okay, so in terms of topicality, I just want to address the fact that in our topicality, our interpretation says that our topicality says that the interpretation of WINSEC, we're talking about the fact that WINSEC isn't part of Latin America itself, and the fact that this is not, WINSEC isn't part of Latin America itself, it's part of its own entity. In our second card, our violations card, WINSEC is outside of Latin America and is not under Southcom. It talks about how the Secretary of Army is in charge of it, but that it works on both Southcom and Northcom. So to say that this is educational is wrong, because we can talk about Northcom too, which is not part of this resolution. So again, we want to set our limits and our grounds in this, and it's not educational because the fact that it opens up to more things, like you know, he talked about Fort Benning and things of that nature. So it talks about way more than what we're supposed to be talking about in different aspects, and it's too small and too broad, and it's not part of Latin America. The next one I want to go to is, he talks about colonialism and the thinks their form of education is a colonialist and should be rejected. Well, all of this stuff was written by pretty much the same people. I don't understand how this can be written by colonialists and how these ideas are colonialist. Everything that we read and write is based off the same ideas and based off the same Western ideology. So for me to only think colonialist is to say that you think colonialist as well. And so I think that that's unfair to say that it's colonialist ideal. Counter-interpretation of the command role includes education. Yeah, Southern Command, again, it's not part of Southern Command. The plan reduces Southcom's education initiatives through WINSEG. The form of education that is being taught in WINSEG, one of their biggest things is humanitarian aid. So it's not like they're trying, well, not humanitarian aid, it's helping others and humans and things of that nature. So to say that it's not going to do anything, well, I don't even know what I'm trying to go there. But I'm just going to move on to the next. The education you capitalism. Okay, now I'm going to go to on case. So he talked about empire building and capitalism and poverty. The biggest thing I want to address about poverty is that poverty comes with any single form of government. It can come with communism, it can come with authoritarian government, it can come with socialism, it can come with democracy. It comes with every single thing. And democracy is I don't have any cards to state this, but democracy is the best form of this because we actually have a choice. He says himself that some will lose, some will win, you know, and that's the truth, because you have to work hard to get what you want. It's not like you're born into anything. You win some, you lose some. In terms of democracy, I think that democracy is important, and democracy is a key way to make your voice known, and he thinks that votes are somehow bad in a way, because it makes people corrupt, and or money makes people corrupt. And I just don't understand how any of this can make any sense, because this stuff specifically outlines what is good for people, to be able to have a say, to be able to have a chance to make money or lose money. So I don't understand how that capitalism is a bad thing. I mean, any form of government can be seen as bad, but democracy has the best chances for anybody. Next is, I want to go to the war. He talks about war being inevitable. In his fourth card, because of globalization, I think that war becomes more inevitable if we pull out of Southcom, if we leave Southcom. In terms of my hegemony, I'm going to go to this app now. In terms of the hegemony, you know, if we pull out, then other countries will come in, and he talked about fixed rather than capitalist. Where did it go? Oh, it's hedge sucks, capitalism, assumption, U.S. researchers, hegemony. He talked about hegemony becoming nuclear, and it's a key way for globalization, or not globalization. What was it? Where is it at? Mr. says the argument I find. Oh, a vehicle for Western capitalism. Again, I want to go back and state the fact that capitalism and Western ideas are what we use in debate right now. What we're using are the Western and capitalist ideas. So to say that it's bad doesn't make any sense to me. And again, it goes back to my hegemony. The fact that he says that there's going to be where is it? All school one said.
Alright, the order's gonna be T case. Is that, I guess. Is everybody ready? Judge, I'm not, even though he still puts the T at the flow at the end of the day, I'm not really gonna go for this, but if something happens, I still think you can extend across the trainer and Occupy Wall Street evidence. Specifically, he concedes that if I win better education, I win the position, I win the debate. He cold concedes the trainer evidence, specifically indicating that the education that he prescribes has been subverted by capitalism, and that capitalism is an inherently unfair system. But additionally, even under the colonialism card, like my framing of these terms to T, or the fact that the AF is a criticism of these notions, particularly, and only through the AF can we actually break out of the AF interpretations, can we break out of this reinscription of operational assumptions in the long erasure of Latin America. Probably means you can vote easily on terms to T, but let's go to case. Look, judges, at the end of the day, he doesn't do enough on case. You can extend across my analysis from the roll of ballot argument, specifically indicating that like that, this is the lens you have to look through, that we have an ethical obligation to reject capitalism. I want you to flow across my case answers. I made about, there was at least 3 answers to each of his turns that go completely cold conceded. Probably means you're going to be airing AF on this, and particularly when he drops my solvency mechanism, means I have 100% solvency of capitalism. But additionally, he makes this argument that poverty comes with any form of government. This is going to be uniquely non-responsive to this is going to be uniquely non-responsive to any of the arguments I made coming out of the 1AR, particularly indicating that poverty only exists because of capitalism. That's the Johnson evidence. It literally indicates that poverty is a structural aspect of capitalism. And I also make the argument that none of his evidence is uniquely comparative to capitalism versus any other system. It means he never wins. He's just behind on the debate of whether capitalism, even if capitalism solves some poverty, he's still behind on the calculus level where he doesn't give you any articulation that it creates net less poverty. But additionally, you can extend across the Zizek and Daly card that literally talks about violent inequality is the foundation of capitalism. That goes pretty cold conceded. You can also extend across, and this is going to be cross-applied as an answer to the dissat, but extend across all my analysis, the Zizek and Daly extension, the Magdoff and Foster extension, and the Goodman 09 evidence that literally says capitalism makes insecurity and war inevitable in the status quo. Like particularly when these cards go cold conceded, that's going to straight turn the dissat, but it also gives me, another good reason why cap's bad. But let's talk about the last answers he makes. He spends most of his speech waxing poetically about, democracy and everything, but that becomes particularly problematic when he never responds to my argument that democracy is impossible under the framework of capital because money corrupts the system, particularly when you look to the Wilkie 1 evidence that can get extended across there, but also if you extend my extension of the Zizek and Daly evidence probably means that you're never going to be, I got 6 seconds, probably means that you're never going to be able to vote on this when it goes functionally cold conceded democracy is impossible.